Alright, 5 more books to go. Let's get into it. Our protagonist today is Sammy. He's a bit of a science fiction and horror nut, which comes into conflict with his scientist family. Both his parents are highly intelligent, independent scientists who spend their dinners going over schematics and formulas with each other. Sammy's dad is working on a device called the molecule detector light down in the basement, a flashlight-like thing that reveals, things you can't see. Kind of like an X-ray, but also magic. I wonder if that'll come into play in a book with the word invisible in the title. Sammy and his quote-unquote friend, Roxanne, are working together on an English class project. And while most kids would probably just turn in a boring book report, Roxanne has a more exciting idea. What if we snuck into a haunted house and filmed a ghost? Sure, that has nothing to do with English class, but I guess proving the existence of ghosts gets you an A in any class, even woodworking. Roxanne's haunted house of choice is Hedge House, a little place near the college where it's said the ghost of a one-armed boy lingers. Sammy just rolls with it. There's no point in arguing with Roxanne. It's around this time that odd things start to happen to Sammy. His window opens seemingly on its own, and something scatters his school papers around. It might be the cat, Brutus. He's been acting strange lately, like he senses something that nobody else can see. Then, one morning, when Sammy's back is turned, someone eats his breakfast cereal. "Look," I shouted. "Someone did eat my cereal. I have proof. The spoon. It's on the left side of the bowl. I always put my spoon on the right side of the bowl, because I'm right-handed. See?" I pointed to the spoon. "Geez, Sammy, even Sherlock Holmes would say you're being a bit too hyper-specific here." Things finally go from weird to creepy when, at school, Sammy is asked to solve a math equation on the chalkboard. Suddenly, an invisible hand takes Sammy's and starts writing out the equation for him. Sammy freaks out, screaming and running out of the classroom. And to her credit, Sammy's teacher shows some genuine human concern, a rarity for Goosebumps. Sammy has no idea what's going on. When he comes home from school, he's drawn to Brutus freaking out in the kitchen and finds a scene of a floating piece of pizza slowly disappearing as an invisible person eats it. Sammy naturally gets in trouble for eating the pizza, and gets into more trouble when his mom finds a huge mess of food in his room. Half-eaten sandwiches in his bed, chicken bones on the floor, wrappers everywhere. It's less that someone ate in his room so much as someone went full Cookie Monster in his room. Mom punishes Sammy into cleaning it up without dinner, meaning Sammy missed 2 meals in one day. Finally, this invisible person starts talking to Sammy. His name is Brent. He's about Sammy's age, and his parents made him invisible when he was little. He's been living by himself for a while, but has decided to stay with Sammy. So basically, an invisible feral child has moved in, and Sammy won't be able to get anyone to believe him. He tries with Roxanne, who comes over to discuss their class project, but Brent refuses to reveal himself to anyone else, and Roxanne thinks Sammy's lost it. Roxanne, being Sammy's best friend, decides to completely ruin Sammy's life. The next day at school, Sammy finds all of his classmates seemingly talking to other invisible people. "Roxanne, you're not going to believe," I started. Then I stopped. Roxanne was grinning. She walked up to me and laughed right in my face. All the other kids in the hall began to laugh too. You told everyone?" I sputtered. "You told everyone about the invisible kid in my room?" Roxanne tried to speak, but she couldn't. She was doubled over, laughing really hard now. She nodded yes. "Okay, well, Roxanne, you've got a bright future organizing flash mobs, I guess." Even one of the teachers gets into this, the same teacher who was really considerate of Sammy earlier. The prank on Carrie took weeks to organize, but I guess Roxanne is just rolling nat 20s on all her persuasion checks. Naturally, Sammy is mortified to be the butt of a school-wide joke. He hides out in the school library during lunch when Brent shows up and starts eating Sammy's sandwich, which gets Sammy in trouble with the school librarian. "No food in the library!" But instead of getting in trouble, the librarian instead recognizes that Sammy is distressed and tries to be supportive. Again, another oddly human adult understanding moment. The final straw comes during a school track meet, where Sammy is participating in the relay race. Sammy gets the baton and starts running, but then Brent grabs him and starts lifting Sammy off the ground, making it look like he's floating. That would be some significant physiological difference between Brent and Sammy for that to be possible. Naturally, Brent messes it up, drops Sammy, and he and his team lose the race. Sammy is furious, but Brent won't leave him alone. Sammy screams at the invisible kid and eventually drives him away by making the bedroom too hot. Brent keeps saying that Sammy's house is just a little too warm. It seems like Brent's gone for good. It comes time for Sammy and Roxanne to visit the hedge house and catch a ghost on camera. And what do you know? It's their lucky day. I gaped in horror as Roxanne's jacket flew up behind her, tugged by an invisible, ghostly hand. Her whole body jerked as the ghost pulled and sent her stumbling across the room. She tripped and fell on her knees. Oh, never mind, it's just Brent. Before she could climb up, a pillow floated from the floor. I stared in shock as it pressed itself on Roxanne's face. She uttered a muffled cry. "Help! I can't breathe! The ghost! He's smothering me!" "No!" A cry tore from my throat as I dove across the room to Roxanne. "No!" With a desperate grab, I ripped the pillow away. "Go haunt someone else!" I screamed. "Sammy, it's Brent. You have to recognize it's Brent. It's so obviously Brent." "Okay, Sammy, maybe you're caught in the moment, but please start suspecting it's Brent at some point. I'm begging." A cold hand tightened around my arm. "Jeffrey, I've been waiting for you," a hoarse voice rasped. "The ghost of Hedge House! It talked! It talked to me!" Yeah, he's never going to realize it's Brent, is he? Sammy and Roxanne run out of the haunted house and all the way back home. Back in his room, Sammy finds Brent waiting for him, who admits right away that it was all him. Wasn't that clever? Sammy is pissed, but his seemingly erratic behavior has finally caught the attention of his parents, who decides it's time his son got some psychiatric help. Sammy is freaking out, and makes his parents a deal. Let's use Dad's special invisibility-seeing flashlight to see if Brent is there or not. So Sammy, Roxanne, Mom and Dad, and Sammy brother Simon, who I forgot to mention because he's totally unimportant to the story, start searching the house with Dad's molecule detector light. And finally, they find Brent, and soon realize he's not like them. "Whoa, he is so ugly," Simon groaned. "Yuck, he has only one head. And look, he has only 2 arms, and they're so short," Roxanne cried. "He can't wrap his arms around and around himself. How does he keep himself warm? And what's that dark stuff growing on top of his head?" Simon pointed. "Why doesn't he have tendrils and suction pods like we do? Where are his antennae? And how can he see with only 2 eyes?" And so we have our twist. Brent is human, and everyone else in this book was actually some kind of 2-headed alien monster person. Sammy's dad comments on how human beings are on the endangered species list, and they should probably call the zoo. The end. Okay, so no, they don't tell us the exact nature of this reality. Are the monster people of this world aliens who invaded and took over Earth? Are they some kind of mutation that a certain group of human beings managed to avoid? Best I can figure, it's just a straight-up alternate reality where this was just always the case, where these monster people developed a society otherwise identical to our own. In the book, we see them eat spaghetti and pizza, root for the New York Yankees, use camcorders and go to movies and keep cats as pets. They're just people who happen to have 2 heads and more than 2 arms. So what are humans in this reality? If Brent is a representative sample, humans are sentient, intelligent, and speak the same language as the monster people, and can also turn invisible? Is that through magic? So are there any hints that everyone's a monster person, or does this twist come out of nowhere? There's a few hints, I guess. If you squint, Brent being able to pick up Sammy during the relay race suggests a significant difference in size. And Brent complains that Sammy and his family keep their house too hot, as if it's a climate a human person can't get used to. But that could also make you think Brent himself is a monster before the twist, which would probably be a more sensible ending. Of course, we've seen this same "we thought this was a story about humans, but actually it's about monsters" twist before in Welcome to Camp Nightmare, and that book shares a lot of the same world-building issues, but doesn't have an actual human person to contrast against. You know, this specific twist just wouldn't translate to a visual medium. So naturally, both My Best Friend is Invisible and Camp Nightmare got episodes in the TV show. Yes, the twist is goofy, but it's easy to get caught up in it, and I'd say it's the least of this book's problems. My Best Friend is Invisible is pretty empty in both characters and theme. I couldn't tell you a damn thing about Sammy. He's just a crash test dummy for things to happen to. Roxanne is a bully, Sammy's parents are cartoon mad scientists, and Simon is also there. The only character with any dimension to them is Brent, an invisible feral child who has imprinted on Sammy as a source of food, comfort, and friendship. But why does he imprint on Sammy? Because Sammy just happened to be there? Sammy pretty much wants Brent gone from the start. The two don't develop any real relationship besides an antagonizing one. Wouldn't Sammy want to take advantage of this, at least at first? Because this book is called My Best Friend is Invisible. And at no point are Sammy and Brent remotely friends. I think this book should be about a certain type of friendship. So here's my rewrite. Sammy's having a rough time. He doesn't have any good friends, his grades are slipping, and let's give him a hobby. Say, he's an aspiring filmmaker, the artist in a family of scientists. One day, the power goes out in the house for a few minutes. After that, strange things start happening. Food gets eaten by an unseen person, things move around, yada yada yada. Sammy discovers Brent. Brent is initially very shy, but Sammy gets him to come out of his shell. The two get to know each other, and Sammy finds him a comfortable place to sleep and starts sneaking him food. The two hang out for a while, Sammy really enjoying the situation, and the two start doing shenanigans. It starts innocent enough, with Brent helping Sammy with his spooky ghost movie he's making, and then, from Brent's suggestion, starts escalating to more dubious areas. Brent helps Sammy cheat on a test. Brent helps Sammy get back at some bullies, classic stuff. But then Brent starts stealing, grabbing candy from grocery stores, video games from the toy store, all without Sammy asking for it. Sammy starts to feel uncomfortable, but Brent won't ease off. "We're best friends, Sammy. I just want you to be happy." Sammy starts getting into trouble for all of these things, so he tells Brent they need to stop. When they don't stop, Sammy has no option but to tell Brent to leave. Leave him alone. They're not friends anymore. Brent goes berserk and starts to sabotage Sammy's life on the demand that they become friends again. Sammy starts getting in trouble for things like pulling the fire alarm or playing pranks on the teachers, and eventually Brent trips Sammy up during the relay race. Brent won't stop, not until Sammy says they're friends again. Sammy eventually does, lying to keep Brent happy, but then tries to trap Brent in a locked bathroom so he can get his parents. Brent chases Sammy around the house, being an invisible menace, until Sammy runs into the basement. There he finds his father working on a strange metal door-like device. Sammy asks what it is. Dad says it's a prototype portal to another dimension. He gave it a test run a few weeks ago and knocked out the house's power. Sammy puts two and two together and realizes that Brent must have come in through the portal, which means Brent isn't human. Brent attacks Sammy. Sammy turns on the portal, which starts sucking things into it. Brent becomes briefly visible, revealing himself to be a scary monster, and screaming that he'll be back, and this time he'll bring all his friends with him. The portal closes. Dad is all, "Well, that was weird," and we cut to a scene of Brutus the cat, playing by himself. Or is he, as something invisible tugs at his cat toy. This version of the story has better realized characters, but also gives us what you think the obvious theme of this book would be: toxic codependency, something that anyone could find themselves dealing with in their lives. Brent comes to rely on Sammy for all of his needs, and makes Sammy responsible for his well-being, forcing Sammy to give up on his interests and focus exclusively on Brent. While this would be a fantastical version of toxic codependency, demonstrating it in a children's book could be a useful lesson in recognizing it in your real life. It's not just scary, it's educational. But that's not the book we got. The book we got is a big pile of empty calories, uninterested in making something with the ingredients it's given itself. If anything, the goofy nonsense twist saves the book from being totally forgettable. But yeah, this one sucks. Put it in the bad pile. I give My Best Friend is Invisible a furball out of 10.